Okay, hey everyone. We are now back online. Sorry for a couple of weeks off, just had some personal things to do. Wasn't really feeling it, but I'm now back and ready to paint some more models. Yeah, nice to see Wolf back. Familiar name. But yeah, so the plan tonight is just to quickly crack on, do some more of the Empress US Marine guys. We've got 4 more guys, so another fire team. We're taking them from basic layer, and we'll get them up into full camo. So yeah, that's the plan. The guys I've selected this time is basically a fire team with a DMR rifleman. So I've got the guy on with the M21, which is always a fun piece of kit to have on the board. IR, as you expect, and then the grenadier. And the last guy is actually my initial test of just seeing how well the camouflage would look. I've actually gone with a different camouflage style compared to what this original version was, because this one was done several years ago, so I'm going to have to paint back over that just to bring them back to the usual colours, and then build them up from there. But yeah, so that's the plan, and if you want to jump in, chat, I will be here to chat. Aside from that, not a huge amount else, just watch me paint. Okay, I'll begin on with it. So this first stage is just getting the flesh tone on them, because you want to get a good coverage of it, because you can be a bit messy, because you can just go back over and paint everything around it, but painting flesh can often be a pain in the backside. So just doing it first, you can be a bit sloppy. Just get as much of it covered up. I gave these guys gloves, so I'm just doing the heads and faces. But I'm going to try something different. I'm going to actually paint up the squad leader in with a darker skin. Try to decide which version of my 2 versions to go with, because I've got one which is burnt umber and then beige brown, which is what I have used before. The other option is to use Rhinox hide and then beige brown, which gives the same sort of similar idea, just deciding which colour to start with. I'll go with burnt umber, which I think is a slightly lighter tone. So I will notice my brush is really starting to fall to pieces. Got big chunks of plastic coming off. So I might get some electrical tape out this weekend and just tape it up. Yeah, I mean the point is mostly okay. It didn't need repointing every so often. So honestly, like it still functions as a brush, but you just got to be a bit more careful with it. Right, that's basic skin tones on. So the next stage is deck tan, which is the base color. I've actually gone a bit overboard because this guy shouldn't have deck tan over him. What I'm kind of tempted to do now I think about it is I might actually. I'm kind of tempted. I want to try and give certain people a bit of a standout look, be that squad leader or whatever. And I think the DMR, I'm tempted to give him a different color helmet cover, just to make him look make him stand out a bit. So I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do. So it's an option between I might. I could try and do some AOR 2, which is kind of similar. Well, it's a naval camo. I haven't actually got a woodland marpat camo recipe. The other option is just leave it blank and just simply make it look like a tan color. So just like he's got a sort of a cheaper version. The other option is to paint it up as normal and then give it a wash before my Agrax wash, which would then give it a deeper, like a darker color. So maybe it looks like be used a bit more, give him a bit more of a veteran look. Alright. Okay. So that's that colour redone. So they should all now be the correct base colour. So next stage is going to be US Field Drab for the tan. So it's going to be on the plate carrier stuff. Still not decided. I might do this on the marksman's head. So I can spot it. Or I might actually. Ooh, what I could do. I should see. Give a camo shade wash actually over camo. Might make it look a bit different, a bit used. This brush is actually wrong size for these panels because there's so much on the paint. It's not just a touch up. Hey, Paul. Nice to see you turn up. Just in the midst of painting up these guys. Oh, that's cool. So which Hassle 3 guys is it? Is that the basic set or is it... Oh, new ones you mentioned, yeah. Those would be quite cool. yeah, again, I'm actually being quite. I should be a bit more kind of precise with some of these straps, but again, I will have a touch-up stage, and in the worst case, there's going to be a camo pattern applied, so I can sort of go over that. So feel free just to be a little bit messy, go back and tweak it all. This has got some interesting angles to paint because he's got the rifle covering his chest, so you don't get really much access to his vest. But yeah, so do that. I'll touch it up in a moment. And of course, it's get knee pads. So yeah, that's first up. Right, this guy has got a rucksack on. And the question is, how do I want to paint the rucksack? Because I could actually do that in camo, which would give some variation, which I'll have a think about. So I'll do the rest of it, and while I'm doing that, I'll consider. Also, I've just noticed this man's lower leg does not look very camouflage, so he's getting painted up anyway. So I think that has sold my mind. He's going to have a camo rucksack. Empress Bureau. I don't know. They could potentially be back in Dalden days, but honestly, at this stage, Bazistan is much more kind of not modernized, but it's at least kind of it's Iraqi army 2003 as opposed to anything too old fashioned. Probably the oldest you get is the internal like the local police with G3s and stuff like that. Because those West German police models are lovely. Um, I've also got to admit, yeah, that's also a little worrying. I've also got to admit, I'm just kind of I'm looking at all the models I've got to paint and all the stuff I've bought. I'm kind of thinking I've got so many projects which are kind of stuck, but I should really just get on and finish some of them. Like I've got my moderns, which is several thousand figures. No, 1,000 something other figures. And I've got some 40k stuff, and I've got fantasy, and I've got my World War II. And it's just like I'm kind of reaching the point where the sticking point is not actually, oh, I've got things I want to, I'm missing something for a project. The problem now is that I'm not painting them. So I think I need to really just have a bit of a slowdown with purchasing and just actually paint models. Finding time to, and getting stuff done, and either get it done and sell it, or get it done and then use it in games. For example, I've the new Aeronautica Imperialis came out, and I haven't bought it yet because as much as much of the reason I got into it was Tiny Valkyries. I haven't finished painting the starter kit. I have 2 Marauders and all the Orcs to paint. It's kind of just like I really shouldn't, and I've got other things to spend money on in these trying times, unfortunately. But yes, at some point I might do. I'm kind of tempted to do Falklands, but I'm not 100%. Okay, so there's a problem with this model because someone hasn't done his cleanup properly. You might not be able to see it, but there's a triangle of metal in there, which is the connection between his arm and the gun and his chest. Now, I'm just going to clean that up. And so this is one thing that you get quite a lot with the Empress figures, especially, is that they fill in that gap. And I think it's probably a casting thing, and it's a very minor cleanup, but it's very. It's just you just have to remember actually to do the cleanup for it. But it can make the model look just a little bit better. But of course, it's best to do this. Best time to do your cleanup is not when you're actually painting the model. I must admit, ooh, dangerous. I was going through my fixing my blog, because the issue with my blog, just in case anyone's interested, was that effectively I was doing some image cleanup a while back, and I deleted some images I probably shouldn't have, which is weird because I also then had images which I have not used since 2009, which is when I first built that site. So effectively, I was maxing out my storage and also deleting files. So I had basically to go back and I had to go through, basically run a couple of tools just to like go through and find all of the missing images and missing links and all that sort of stuff. And there's still broken links. I'm going to be fixing them soon. But the broken images was just a pain because I'd go back and re-upload a whole bunch of them. That's now fixed. But I was going through my US Army and I was like looking at them like, actually, I really like these figures. I don't think they're perfect. I think as I'm getting older and grumpier, I like a lot of Empress's stuff. There's always 1 or 2 figures in each pack that just look a bit off. And I think you especially see that with the early stuff like the US infantry and the Taliban. But with the US infantry, they're fun models. I've had a couple of good games of them. I look forward to getting them back on the table at some point. They're not modern in any way, shape, or form at this point. They're probably a little too 2010, 2012 sort of era. For the ultra modern Americans, I'm looking forward to the Radio Dish Dash guys finally getting Ultra Combat Modern to me, which is going to be a pain in the backside because I think I'm still registering my Edinburgh address with that, which is going to change. But I'm looking forward to getting those guys. And yeah, I mean, I will say the handy figures to have because that style of them is really cool to have just for whenever, because effectively there's so much you can involve them in from now back in time. Like having a group of 9 of them is all you need. Or if you're a lunatic, 13 of them if you're playing US Marines. Which I must admit is one thing I really dislike about these guys. These guys were always a pain, because when I was writing, there's actually a secret skirmish Sangin scenario, which don't tell anyone. I wrote, God, would have been 4 years ago, 4 years ago. Which is basically a 13-man US Marine squad versus with an assaultman team versus a whole bunch of Taliban compounds, and your mission was to crack each compound. And looking back on it, I think it was too ambitious. It should have been just 2 compounds rather than 3. It should have been less figures. But building the US Marine Force, wanting to use a full squad, 13 figures is the max I would pick aside for skirmish Sangin. So you had to bring a second player in to play them, which was always a pain. Speaking of skirmish Sangin, I think everyone might have seen the news. Basically, they are back and they are announcing a version 2, which I'm intrigued at. I do have my reservations, mostly because I'm now writing my own rules, and I kind of feel bad because I think a lot of basically what I want a rule set is I want skirmish Sangin I can pick up and play without having to build 10,000 characters and roll RPG stats for them. So a sort of simplified but still RPG is my aim. And of course, I'm seeing a lot of when you look at their changes, like some of these look like slimming down, some of these look slightly tweaked. So it's that thing of you want to be inspired, but you also don't want to be accused of copying. So I'm watching with wary eyes. Because my focus with my rule set is less about let's be the most realistic and a lot more about let's make a rule set that tells good stories, which is quite realistic and lets you do cool things, but isn't whatever it's called. But isn't bogged down. Like this wants to be a game you can pick up and play at a club night with ease. Which is, I must admit, I'm planning to take a look at on this weekend. I've got a day off, so I'm gonna spend some time, maybe even play a game. The rules, we're approaching the stage where I've got the basics written, so I just need to actually sort of test out the dice mechanics. It's lots of D10s. Because D10s are a fun dice to use, and also rolling multiple D10s is much more interesting than rolling a single D20. So we'll have to see. I'm not going D100 because D100 is a great simplicity, but the maths takes you one step beyond what most players are wanting for a quick game, which I spotted just playing skirmish Sangin. Yeah, this is the thing. I think Sangin is very detailed, and as I keep saying, I've never had a bad game of Sangin because it's always told a good story, but it definitely doesn't always click. Which honestly, I'm having lots of rules. It might just be my brain has reached a point where it's just deciding now that I don't want to bother with this. Yeah, I think that's where. I mean, in their world, they want you to then look at Ultra Combat and be like, "Oh, this is the rule set for you." I quite like. There's something quite. One of the things I always liked with Skirmish Sangin is basically it got you in the mood in the mindset of having to be that section commander, having to work out what's going on, what can you actually do. And I always loved the moment when the player turns to you and goes, I don't know what I can do. And you're like, right, well, Now you've got past the classic wargamer route of just I'm going to run around the board beating things up. You're now into the okay, how would I do this if I was actually a real human being and I want to keep my guys alive but also do the job? And once you're in that stage, that's when players become interesting, because rather than just being like, well, I'm going to just sit here and pummel them to death, it's like, okay, no, I need to actually get these guys here, these guys here, these guys here. And I think that was always the thing Skirmish Sanguine does a lot better than Spectre. Spectre's more about... Spectre feels a lot like it's kind of an asshole. Like, it doesn't really it doesn't warn you of an upcoming mistake. It lets you make the mistake and then goes, aha, you idiot. Why would you do this? And then brutally murders you. Whilst like Sanguine felt a bit more like, okay, you can get yourself into trouble, and you can get into lots of trouble. And if you are super dumb, then you are dead. But your guys usually have a way of like getting out. Like, you might get a guy who's like just pinned down, but you always have that quick chance to like bring him back up and like, right, okay, I've got tools, I can get him out of trouble. And that's what I quite liked about especially being someone who would run Sanguine for other people. So my aim is basically to sort of bring that idea and bring it to a setup that's a bit faster, but easy to play, that doesn't require you to roll up. Basically, you don't roll up characters. You just, in my rules, you just assign them a couple of stats. My main stat being... So I'm going into rules explosion here, so if anyone's actually like not interested in this, just feel free to mute me for a bit while I paint and talk rules. Basically, the idea behind it is you have two numerical values and then you have traits. The numerical values are skills and morale. Pretty self-explanatory. Morale is going to say how kind of competent, how much you're going to stick in the fight. Skills gives you, well, you know, how like what score do you have to hit to do something that counts as a pass? Like, for example, how like accurate shooting, what value do you have to get, sort of thing. So using a system, you can build up that separation of like, okay, well, this guy's really high confidence, but is bad at actual fighting. And this is a system that I loved in, I think that Force and Force does it incredibly well, is separating those two values lets you do a lot of stuff. And then traits is kind of like where stuff becomes interesting in terms of like making your guys from Soldier A into, this is actually a what it's called. This is, you know, the sergeant everyone loves, or the kind of the loner in the squad that's actually really good at his job, sort of thing. So that's going to be interesting to write up all those traits you can use. Yeah, I think I do. I get the game thing of like fast and aggressive is the way to go, but I always kind of like, you can kind of sort of be too fast and too aggressive, and it's a very thin line, and I don't always get that same feel. Yeah. So one of the traits, like for example, one of the example traits I've got is basically like, so you got simple ones like, oh, this guy's a marksman. So that would basically mean that you get bonuses when doing shooting skills rather than any other skill. But there's also stuff like Squad Joker, which is basically like everyone likes him. So if he's in close proximity when you're taking a morale test, you gain a bonus to your morale because you're buoyed up by the fact your buddy, who is cracking wise and being amusing, is there. Which is the same concept as you might have like a heroic sergeant or someone like that, or like you think about Black Hawk Down. The idea is you want to be able to make like your team. Yeah, that's one aspect. Is always like, if you're making people really effective, if you make people really effective, then you've got to make it that if they go down, they cause problems. But yeah, so my idea is like, you can basically, when you're making, you can either do it really simply and just play it as if it's like a modern war game. No one's got many traits apart from maybe like squad related traits or training. or you can go the war movie route and have lots of main characters that are a bit hardier because of your main characters, but get lots of traits. Or you could have the route where like you're playing the opposing force and you've got tons and tons of guys and you get to recycle them because you're using all extras. So there's lots of I basically want to build up this system to be like a toolbox where it's less focused on can you make a balanced game, more about can you make a game that's interesting to play. And doing stuff like I'm not gonna put limits like, oh well, if you're playing this style of game, you can only have one main character and one of these. It's like no. If you want to have loads of main characters, go for it. If you want to have 4 main characters versus 20 extras running around the mountainside, and yes, you've just made yourself a lone survivor. And that's sort of the aim with my rule set. Is there's lots of people going for like the most realistic or whatever. This is about making a rule set that is fun, more than 100%. But it's the idea is that you could play it realistically, or you could play it action, or you could play it war movie. So, and the way I've described it to a couple of friends is that this is like a modern war movie. So it's not like it's not like Bridge Too Far, or whatever, where like all the main characters never get injured and they just run through all the firefighting. Now this is like your main characters will get hurt, but you have more ways of dealing with that than you would do if they're just a normal guy. So yeah, so that's what I'm working on in my free time. The other element I'm borrowing or reusing. Yeah, I think that's sort of that's actually maybe a very good way of saying it. Ace Combat style, is that there's lots of attention to the realism, but you can still do some more arcadey, as you say, play. But yeah, I'm also using the Fog of War system from. I'm going to tweak it, but something something similar to the Fog of War system from or it's called from Force on Force, because that's always like giving players a stack of cards and saying every turn pull a card, please. Gives you a lot more of those oh shit moments, or something like oh no, this battle's changing. I'm reading a lot of books. Like there's going to be stuff in that deck. Like basically you'll have different decks depending on your mission's engagement style. So, for example, patrolling the streets of downtown Bazi City has a very different Fog of War deck to creeping around the mountains or defending a fob. So I've been reading up a lot and like taking notes of like, this would be a cool thing to happen mid-game. One of the ones from reading Red Platoon was the concept of like someone drops a JDAM somewhere nearby. It's not close enough to cause direct damage on the board, but it's close enough that everyone on the board feels it and has to react to like, okay, so you might have been preparing your guy for a push on this objective. Well, if you're the attacker and the defender has dropped a bomb on you, or your friend's just off board, you're like, actually, you know what? Maybe they might need a bit more oomph to actually push over. So it's all about kind of like that deck is going to challenge you and make you think about, okay, so what this is the evolving situation. What do I do next? Oops. Yeah. Yeah, I think I will say as much as movies and stuff help, books kind of give a bit the extra oomph. Yeah. Oh, we got 5. Who have we got in the chat tonight? Got a good mix of people. Some familiar names. Nice to see everyone back. So in charges ranting / talking about future rule set hour while painting models. We go back to just chatting about stuff. Oh yeah, I say I'm having not played games. I realized looking for my stats. Basically, I haven't run a game in probably 6 months at this point. It's been a very long time. Let's quickly bring up in the other window. So the last battle report for a game I actually ran myself and not just World War II. Which, by the way, if you haven't read the World War II report, I'm still really happy about how that game came about. So the last game I ran was 26th of July 2019, which was this. If you can see in the corner, it's the giant game, which was really nice. I had a really fun time, but it was just before I had some personal issues, and I think that was a game where I actually got a bit ranty with one of the players, and kind of lost myself a little bit. But we'll get back to it. So yeah, maybe I will run a game this weekend for myself. But yeah, it's I really miss running games, but I just sort of my time just disappeared, and I just ran out. I'm still struggling to fit it all in between this and games and work, and obviously being stuck in the house doesn't help. So yeah, I definitely want to run more games. Yeah, what game was it? That game we ran was really good because one of the forces, which was the most amusing force, was it Bali local security forces in a BTR, and they were not particularly good, and they were fighting a bunch of local rebels, and it just went mad. But yeah, I kind of really like. I've run a lot of missions where it's special forces or regular forces whacking insurgents. It just gets a bit boring because it's just like, ooh, look, these guys have come under fire and they can react quickly and move out of the way. It's funnier to have those big groups of insurgents just shooting each other up, and then suddenly turns into like not bogging down, but basically the first person to do something wild will usually have a good time. Um, African militia versus African government forces is probably one I go for, because then you have one force that is supposed to be regulars, and then you play them and they're like, no, these guys are terrible. What am I doing? Also, depending on where your African forces are based out of, if they've got fouls, then you get to have the fun thing of like insurgents with assault rifles who have that rate of fire improvement up against guys who can hit super hard if they hit. That sounds like you need, if you're running African militia versus African government forces, that sounds like you need like a diamond smuggler character and a local militiaman he's working with have to sort of work from one side of the battle to the other. Along with a few Mr. Bigs running around and maybe a technical or two. So for anyone who doesn't know, Paul and I, we've chatted a fair amount about some modern war stuff, and he does like picking up a few things. He's actually got some of the Spectre Kickstarter models, and he will fight you if you try and take them from him. Apart from the duplicates he's got. So yeah, that's a bit more tan on. Right, so here's a problem. I have just realised I've forgotten what colour I painted these boots. Because it's definitely like a... Is that tan earth? Or is it? Beige brown, I think. So yeah, so I've done my tan, using my beige browns. But yeah, I'm gonna run a game. I've got if you haven't seen, I actually have a board set up in my spare room, which is a real small crashed airplane, middle of the woods, bit of cover around. So I think a small group fighting each other through that will be probably a good first start. But yeah, it'll be lots of like I've got to play lots of test games, so I'm gonna do some solo stuff. Which, yeah, I will admit, with all this COVID-19 stuff, if you're writing a rule set and you aren't making a solo set of rules, you are doing something wrong with your life. I'm already thinking about how best to solo it. So, okay. So the rules in a public place you can socially distance in the house. I can't remember exactly the details. I know I've been bubbled with my parents, luckily, so I can go see them without social distancing. I think I can have visitors round, but it's one of those things. It's like you could have someone around, but then there's always that risk. And unfortunately, I think my buddy's over in York, so it's a reasonable drive, and maybe not quite yet for Tiny Man's. Um, but we'll see. The other option I'm really considering is just basically running the game remotely. Uh, so have a Zoom cam and set up things like that. Um, but we'll have to see. I mean, very much a case of it, like with my other hobby being airsoft, which is like we've reopened and there's lots of like it's fine, come along and do this, this, and this. It's like, well, going airsofting with these restrictions. I have a distrust of airsofters to begin with. I think we're all there's some interesting people you go airsofting with, but I'm just kind of not that fussed about risking stuff right now. So it's a case of like my hobbies are kind of like play lots of Call of Duty at the moment, which is good. Maybe playing too much Call of Duty, but I'm gonna maybe take a break a little bit and focus on the tiny mans. Yeah, there's people so obviously they're the way that lots of sites are running is they've reduced numbers, so the safe zones should be bigger, but the safe zones are nasty anyway. And the idea of also like obviously all these places, if you've never been airsofting, a lot of the safe zones are some sheds on the edge of a forest, and the toilet is a portaloo, and that doesn't sound particularly appealing with even with less players. It's going to be just pain in the backside. Um, Plus, not to mention, if you're going airsofting with people, everyone you're going with has to have a car because you can't so you can't join up in car journeys or aren't supposed to, and it's just like lots of stuff. It's like what's the point of all this bother? Like, it's not that important to me. So yeah. Yeah, I think that's one thing is that I definitely when I was when I started miniatures, I stopped airsofting quite as much, and it has kind of replaced that same feel of like the collection side, but also the cool action. At the same time, though, you can't beat that going out with a few friends and running around the field. It's a real shame. Myself and my university friends, we have a yearly airsoft get together, which would have been last month. Unfortunately, it just wouldn't work. Maybe at some point for the end of the year, but we'll see. Okay. Right, so these guys have got the basic colours on. Not really camo just yet, so need to do the guns first. I'm going to do the Neaton pass, and then we'll do the camo, and then we'll carry on. So next stage is doing the helmet netting and helmet straps. So I'm going to go for a US Army dark green. And first I'm going to switch back to the character brush. As I mentioned on Facebook, I did watch The Outpost, thanks to US access, and yeah, it's real good. If you want to have a film about, it definitely feels quite like a slightly tamer version of 13 Hours in terms of this is a historical thing. I'm going to treat it with little respect, but also make an action film. There's some pretty good casting for people. The script is not the best. It's all right, does the job. But yeah, it's definitely worth it when it comes out in the UK. If you're in the UK, I definitely recommend watching it. Otherwise, it's on Amazon Prime, I think, in the US. Was where I grabbed it. So I haven't actually read the Jake Tapper book, which it's based off. The But based on what I've read in Red Platoon, which is a book I read every year, I think it's reached the point where I find it interesting. I still find the story and the storytelling and the writing interesting. They combine probably two deployments of different people. For example, when they turn up, Orlando Bloom's character is not or was not part of the same deployment as the rest of the characters. He was there quite a bit before, because I won't spoil it, but once you see his name, you'll be like, okay, something's about to happen here. Also, it's Orlando Bloom in a military film, so he's about to die because it seems like that's all they pick his character for, or his actor for. He does a pretty good job of like you remember his performance, which is always good. But yeah, there's a few mixed together. There's a few little touches and details. There's a Latvian guy running around who's using an M4 for some reason. When in the book, he's explicit Romanesh, who is played by Scott Eastwood, explicitly says like he's using a G36, and you're like, okay, so someone couldn't get a G36 in. But but it does the job of like it does the same thing Black Hawk Down does, which it gives you the importance of it, and is also a good film to watch because you can sort of go too far one way and too far the other, and you're just like this is not actually that enjoyable to watch, or you can go away and it's like this is not historical. I think this does a nice job of blending it together. The guy they got to play one of the two Medal of Honor winners, uh, Carter, is one of these actors. Where it's like he's not the most handsome fellow, but he does a very good job of acting. And I think he works really well in his role as this guy who, if you read up on Ty Carter, it's like he was a Marine. He left the Marines for in like 2002, and then came back in the army after doing a whole bunch of other jobs. He seems like a very interesting character to deal with. When you see what he does, it's all really good. So I definitely recommend it if you've got a chance to. It's definitely one to watch. Yeah, I found American Sniper to be. I read a little bit of the book, and it was just a bit like, okay. Um, I did have that moment of I was having that weekend where you watch Lone Survivor, and then you go and read up on other people's opinions of what happened. You're like, But at the same time, though, I think that like Lone Survivor occupies that space in my brain where it's just like, do you want to watch a film to do with shooting mans? It's like, you know what? Yeah. It's sort of the same place that Black Hawk Down is in. It's just like this is a film I can just turn on and watch because I know it so well. And occasionally get story ideas. There was a I'm not even gonna go anywhere near that. So American Sniper was Kyle. Yeah. Okay, I will let my chat give you answers about that. Wait, no. I didn't sign off on this. That man does not represent me. Do not sue me in a court of law. Actually, I will say, looking at the figures sat on my next big action film in my sights. I can't remember what is actually coming up because I had a schedule in my head and it's all just kind of exploded because none of these films are coming out anymore. Let's quickly take a look at what's upcoming. There was The Old Guard, which is a comic book adaptation, which I'm actually quite interested in. Yeah, Bond's in November. well, correction. Bond is supposed to be in November, but we'll see. I'm still I'm still. I have my disbeliefs on what will happen in November. I would hope stuff will be improved, but you never know. I would say I quite like. I quite like the idea of Tenant. Um, I think it'll look very nice, even if it's completely up its own backside, which it has been in the past. Uh, but yeah, there's not. Oh, the one I'm really looking forward to now, I remember it, is The Kingsman, which is the first film in the Kingsman series because it's taking that spy stuff from the last few Kingsman films, but putting it into a World War One era, which I think is going to be pretty cool. Also, Ralph Fiennes as the it was like the mentor character. I think is going to be like really fun to watch, especially with that sense of humor that those films have. Um, but we'll have to see. But yeah, I'm honest at this stage. I'm just like films will come out when films come out. We'll see what happens. Yeah, I think if you were to watch The King's Man just after having watched 1917, you you might have a bit of a mental backlash at just the sheer difference. But yeah. I mean, this thing I'm not. You just yeah, tonal whiplash. That's what I was trying to go for. But yeah, I'm in case you haven't guessed, I have a very low opinion of just this year being normal any way, shape, or form. It would be nice if it was. I would love if the fact that I came back to be close to friends and family meant I could actually see my friends, but I'm not. I'm not going to start risking stuff because although I don't, I unfortunately know a friend of a friend who has unfortunately passed away from it, and it just doesn't seem worth risking. It's just kind of like you know me sat in my house as long as I can sort of stick with that. And I'm lucky I've got friends. I'm lucky I can work on online. Um, so I will stick with that and stay safe and keep other people safe. Maybe end of the year we might get some stuff done, but apart from that, this year is going to be a bit of a weird year. Play lots of games. Yeah, that's probably I wouldn't maybe not recommend going to Seattle if you were even allowed to. Where has my gunmetal grey gone? Ooh, there's my gunmetal grey. But yeah, um, so my plans for now is mostly play some games. I'm gonna try. As I've said, I've got these figures painted up. I'm gonna try and get some games in. I might actually, now I think about it, get these guys on the table. Get the Bazi Royal Guard. So maybe have a game of lots of these guys standing around guarding a downed aircraft, and then have a bit of a firefight when they get stuck in. So I've just tried to pour this gunmetal grey out, and it's blocked. So I shall take a look at that later on. It should be natural steel. There might actually be a paint order going out soon because I'm missing some colours that have slowly been burning through. So I've been finding out I've hidden my gunmetal grey somewhere. Ah, there we are. Giggle maps. Yeah. So I've only really used one of them, and by use I mean I got it out on a table and I put stuff on top. One of the things I've noticed. So I'm gonna do a I'm gonna actually get my ass in gear and actually do this thing called writing. It's a very popular thing. I used to do it like once upon a time. Um, so I have the two Geekville maps. I also have a deep cut one. And I've noticed the deep cut one has is the mouse pad texture, so things move across it a lot more easily. So I'm going to just take a look at both of them and sort of do some write up on them. But that's one of my things. Like this moves a lot, like a lot more, and it's a lot easier to sort of place things onto. Um, but I do really like the colors of the geek, like the pattern. The deep cut one is, I think, maybe a little too post-apocalypsy. Like it looks good once you put stuff on it. Um, but I think that it's maybe a little too much unless you put the terrain on. If you try to bear it, just looks like you're playing Mad Max. Which, if that's what you're aiming for, then it's pretty much perfect. Like I could probably play some pretty good 40k games across it. Speaking of 40k, 9th edition comes out this week. No, next weekend, in the near future. As much as I would be tempted to buy that box because there's some cool looking models in it, I do not let myself. It is way too many models to paint, and I already have enough Space Marines to build. And also, seeing as I still don't like the 40k rules, even with all the changes. Matt looks possibly the deep cut wasteland mat is lots of cracked ground and stuff like that, which looks great when you put buildings all over it, but looks a little bare. But yeah, so in terms of my list of things to write about, that's high on my list. Mats. I also have the Raw Guard guys to talk about and get like because the idea behind the sit rep versus an impressions was the impressions would be like I have painted them now and I shall give you my full details in a single post. And the sit rep was always like the well, might as well post more and get some thoughts up. So I will try and get a full impressions up soon. Part of it will, of course, be me insulting the stabby knife man because he's a bad figure. But we'll see.
But yeah, so there'll be some posts soon once I get myself together and just find the time to do them. Yeah, like the other thing is like if he was a nicely made melee guy, like the knife looked like a knife and he was posed like he was like one of the knife guys in Spec Ops: The Line, then maybe I'd be okay. But he just looked a bit like he looked like an early 2000s melee guy you fight in some dodgy action adventure game. Yeah, I can agree with that. It's like, oh look, here's like the two hit Michael Bay films, and then here's the one we kind of sneaked in just to make up for this space. Ooh, I've got some bad news, Urban Wolf. I like a lot of Michael Bay films. In fact, there is a whole section on I have a media server in my house, and there's a whole bunch of Michael Bay films on there. Uh, 13 Hours, The Rock, Bad Boys 2. But like, I'm not saying that these films are like artistic. Actually, no, that's a lie. I think Michael Bay films have a certain quality to them that are not maybe like um, the most like I wouldn't. Okay, first of all, Michael Bay's in the Criterion Collection, which I always find incredibly weird. But more importantly, like I would never say Michael Bay is a artistic filmmaker, but all of his films have a certain amount of Michael Bay putting himself into them. It's always weird because there's a very good series on YouTube where Patrick Willems reviews every Michael Bay film, and lots of them are really good. Um, but he does have his opinion that Michael Bay doesn't actually like people. Uh, yeah, Pearl Harbor is kind of like I think Pearl Harbor is a film that breaks a lot of people. But I would also say 13 Hours is genuinely an excellent action film. Um, it's a really good. The weird thing is like it's a Michael Bay film that has subtlety. There's no comedic racism, which he did in a lot of his films. There's no over the top. Like for example, he doesn't even go into the like, well, it was all Hillary who did it. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, Six Underground is a bad film. Like, ignore who even made it. Like, it's a poorly tied together film. That just like I have no idea. Like, if I was Netflix and he'd shown me that film, I'd be like, who the fuck let you in here? Because goddamn, that film's bad. Like, really bad. I was so excited for it, and it came out, and it's just like, just I get the impression he shot lots of stuff for it and then had to frantically tie it together. And his tie it together method was, let's just have Ryan Reynolds talk a lot. People like Ryan Reynolds, and I like Ryan Reynolds, but there is some thing as too much bad Ryan Reynolds to listen to. And if you want to watch Deadpool, Detective Pikachu, and Six Underground in the same weekend, that is called too much Ryan Reynolds. So instead, don't. I just wouldn't watch it. There is no, unlike, even if you don't like Bad Boys 2's plot, he didn't. He was an executive producer on Bad Boys 3. So it's like, so you have some other poor sap to look for. I think it was. I can't remember. I can't remember who you go. But yeah, I'm watching it. It's on my list. But yes, I will defend Mike. Like he doesn't need my defense, but I will say that Michael Bay is not a bad filmmaker. He's just a very odd filmmaker. Um, So yeah, so I would say, but I will say 13 hours. Definitely give it a watch if you like have any interest at all. Yeah, I get that. Extraction's a good film. It's not like Oscar winning, but it's if you want to watch an action film, it's a good choice. Um, yeah, I will say with all this action film watching, having watched the Outpost, I will continue to say that I really want some fob fashion operators, um, because basically I think that there's nothing quite like having fighters on the board in t-shirts, shorts, and flip-flops with Kevlar thrown over the top. So I'd be pretty hyped to see some of those. I've just turned down my audio. I realize I was clipping quite badly. So if any audio issues, just shout. But okay, so these guys are now in the after Marines and Brits. Yeah, no, don't say things like that. Well, I mean, actually, some U.S. Army guys. I'm kind of wondering how much of a pain it would be to do some, let's basically buy some Empress figures and shave the arms down and green stuff on short sleeves and shorts. And I think it'd be a big pain, but it would be better than having to resculpt all the vests and things. So maybe once I've done a bit more green stuff work. Yeah, there's also if you look for Brit, there's quite a lot of pictures of them actually on patrols wearing t-shirts and um, less shorts, but like just t-shirts on the underplay carrier because they didn't have Under Armour body armor to begin with. So that's definitely a look that I think would be pretty cool. I do remember talking to White Dragon. Oh yeah, there's actually a picture of a mortar crew in t-shirt, shorts, and like Kevlar helmet on. Um, but yeah, I think it'd be an interesting range to do, but I think it would be like you'd have to do it on top of an existing range, sort of thing. Right. Okay, so one thing I've done with this guy, um, oh yeah, yeah. God, I still really want. Basically, I have my issue with models at the moment is whatever it's called is there's lots of like ranges people do, and they do all the classic stuff, and then they don't go that extra step to add odd things uh, like guys in specific gear or like breaching tools. We don't do things like if you're doing local forces, don't have like the weird looking ones. We've got giant beards and half their kit's wrong and things like that. Because I can see why you wouldn't, because it obviously requires extra sculpting and be a bit different, and not everyone's going to use them. But it's kind of like just be nice to someone just do the weird stuff. But yeah, as I think as I said in the past, it's A&A guys with that weird combination of American and Afghan and no gear, and then also fob kit. So civilian clothing, or maybe even guys who just don't have plate carriers on, but have or have plate carriers on but no helmet, sunglasses up, rifles ready to go, so you can do some more of those like fob defense missions. Also, variants. This is something that drives me mad. If you want two M240 teams for your US Army Empress figures, you have one set of figures to use. Yeah, I think this is. I will look forward to the first company to make more Syrian style militia, because Syrian style militia, as I was talking to Westbury Wargamers about, they're actually quite well equipped. They have webbing, they have all these decent webbing, they have decent guns, often with like night vision stuff, because they just buy it. Like you can buy a lot of this kit in civilian markets and bring it in. So yeah, so it's a case of I'm intrigued to see what happens next couple of releases. I just kind of hope that COVID-19 doesn't murder all the small companies making modern figures, or force them to focus on other people. But yeah, this is what I lay awake at night thinking about, is the future of modern tiny mans. Okay. Okay. So these guys need dry brushing done, and then it's camo time. Leave them to dry pretty quickly while I quickly grab a drink. But yes, so what else is everyone painting up? Or is everyone planning on projects in progress? Okay. Dry brush time. Yeah, you can't just spend all your time talking to strange Twitch hosts on the internet. You have to go and paint your models. But I will say, I do always quite enjoy. I do quite enjoy having the chats while I'm actually painting. Gives me something else to focus on while I'm burning through camo or whatever. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm very interested to see what happens with a lot of these companies after we finish lockdown and things like that. Because it's not that I think that some of them are bad. I just think that modern wargaming is an incredibly small market. I think that a lot of people may decide that maybe it's too small. I'm very intrigued to see what Futsal is going to act like when they come into the UK, because I am not importing their figures from the States for multiple reasons. But when they come out, I will probably pick up a set to take a look at. I'm not always 100% on their designs, but I'm willing to give them a go. So yeah, it's going to be weird. In shocking twist, man realizes that world will be weird for a bit. So yeah, I mean, intrigued to see what happens. At the same time, though, I have plenty of models to paint. Okay, so if you aren't aware, Futsal UK is the original Futsal, and they had a US arm which was doing some casting and some stuff in the US. I think it was mostly like a tick in the box exercise. I think one of their staff may have moved over to the US at some point. The current Futsal US is actually Tim Spakowski at whatever his company was, Special Artisan Service Miniatures, or piss off as much of the UK model community as possible, which they're now trying to bring them together. One of the big things about SASM's figures was that they only cast in the US, and people don't like importing, which is understandable. So, yeah, I think his aim is to get them in the UK, and then also it means that Futsal will have a distributor in the US, which obviously is helpful. So it's all kind of like everyone wins. But it'll be interesting to see. I have opinions about SASM and its owner, mainly that as Paul says, you want to keep him well away from PR because he is a interesting figure. Is a polite way of putting it. So yeah, I'm intrigued because, pardon me, as much as I'm not always on the figures, I think they're definitely an interesting range to have, and it'll be nice to see more of them. Right. Actually, I'm going to quickly dry brush this guy beige brown. Yeah, I think the postage rate is going to be. Oh god, yeah. I don't know if anyone who plays Ancients may have kept an eye on Infamy from Two Fat Lardies, but their release was very carefully done to make sure that they got a big chunk of sales just before the price went up. Oh, cool. How is it? How is Infamy? Because I have a problem in that I just don't find anything probably before Napoleonic actually very interesting to play because it's moving small blocks of troops up against each other and seeing who wins as opposed to like in more rapid tactics. So I'm intrigued to see how the game is. But I mean, to be honest, based on the Two Fat Lardies, I think the rules are pretty good. So I'm sure it's a rather excellent take on the setting, especially with them actually like with their focus on it being you're playing the setting as opposed to you're playing a bunch of rules that pretend to be the setting, which is always always like the take I would take, if you know what I mean. Okay, right. So it's time to work on Yeah, I think that's one of the main things is just like they have that um, even with like China Command has that asymmetric aspect against two regular forces. So I think them doing ancient Romans and stuff, yeah. Okay, Dectan, medium grey khaki English uniform. Yeah, I think that'll be quite interesting. My only real interest in this. Oh yeah, the classic of I'm already building this army. Let's see how they do it. Yeah, I'm my World War Two stuff is very Market Garden end of war themed, so I'm intrigued to see what their upcoming book on Market Garden is like. Um, okay. Yeah, I think the research side is something that they sort of specialize in, which is always good. Yeah, I will say, I do always, I'm still, it still saddens me is probably the correct word, but I'm kind of saddened that we never saw Fighting Season come out, because I think that they would have done a really good Afghan modern day game. But I can understand why, after having focused on it in the real world for a while, maybe just doesn't appeal to them just yet. It's a shame. Yeah, maybe in a couple of years. But it's like it's one of the things that I actually talked to Lay Neville, who is I basically in my days of trying to review all the rules, which is another thing on my list of things to do. I did sort of drop them an email saying like, "Hey, I'm interested in updating all this stuff. Is there any chance of getting hold of a copy of it?" And we're just like, "Please talk to the guys too fat lardy," said Mr. Neville. And then I went and looked at that, and he was like, "Please talk to him." He's like, "Okay, I've talked to both of you. And both of you okay?" I was like, "Yeah, no, no, maybe later." It's just like, oh, okay, fine. So we're coming up on 9:45. I think I'm going to stop at 10 because I've been sat in this chair for probably most of today and would like to go and do something else for a little bit. Go and stand up and walk around. So I don't think I'll finish these guys tonight. I think we're going to do some bit more. We're going to basically do this first layer of camo on as many of them as can do, and I think we'll stop them. So you might see these guys get done maybe tomorrow night or something like that. I'm probably going to stream. I'll probably just post up once I'm done. But yeah, I will say thank you much everyone for joining in. I'm going to start now. You don't pay for anything. I mean, if you want to pay for stuff, you can throw me some bits my way. I'd work out some way of using them. Not quite sure how, but yeah, I definitely need to try and keep doing this stream stuff. I also need to actually change this setup because it's all right, but it's definitely a bit janky. So I might investigate alternative camera mounting positions, or just better ways of doing this stuff. A top-down view, I think, is probably the best way to do it because if I just very quickly do that, then you'd be able to see a lot more of me actually doing interactions rather than just my hand and occasionally a glimpse of something. Ooh. So yeah, I also need to update this whole surround thing. T-shirt. This is screen show. It's Old Father Time from Witchwood Brewery, which is actually this is T-shirt from my dad's. Over the years, my dad lost a lot of weight. I gained a lot of weight, so we've sort of had a T-shirt swap. So often I go over and find out he's wearing some clothes I left behind because they're too small, and I'm wearing his T-shirts. Yeah, I haven't actually put weight on because yeah, there's lots of like, man, I can't bother to cook, even though I actually have time to cook and I really should be cooking more. So plus all the like, oh, I'll just I'll check what the local takeaways like. It's very strange. So becoming my day job has a event as like a fridge at work, which they had in the Edinburgh office, and they now had in the Leeds office. And the Edinburgh office had like every type of drink under the sun, and every day you'd go in, they'd always have the Pepsi Max would be taken. If you got in there anytime past like 9:30, and all the lunatics would come in and drank all the Pepsi Max. The new office had a like seemed to be comprised entirely of Pepsi Max, which is all right with me because that's my drink of choice. And so instead, I've had to buy it myself and drink all of that. Whereas this isn't the hardcore wargaming talk everyone turns up for, but yeah, I think one of the things that like actually doing this stream actually helped a lot with getting my head back in gear, because it's like if I don't have anything to do, I will just find myself getting into bad routines. If you give me projects and work that I actually want to do, then I'll get back into stuff a lot more easily. So and then of course I'm doing stuff, I feel a lot better because I have that satisfaction of like, oh, I got something done today, as opposed to just like the days blurring together. So yeah, I wasn't originally planning to do this morning, but then decided that maybe today come back to it. Stop feeling grumpy and get on and just paint some more Tide Marines up. Kind of tempted to add a second day to my painting schedule, just so I have like 4 hours a week to do wargaming related stuff. So maybe I'll see. Although part of that might turn into me typing up rules, which I'm not sure would be the most exciting. But it could be an interesting little chat thing, just like running through rules while play some cool music in the background, sort of stuff. Okay, one more model to do the first colour on, and then I will be calling it a night. The other thing I think I'm thinking of doing is try to get some more different models painted, because obviously I want to get this project done, but I've also got all my agent figures which I just want to sit down and get finished off. I also need to go through and do a lot of at some point I need to start doing my terrain, which is another project. I also need to go through and varnish all my figures, because as someone who basically didn't like his paint schemes very much, I didn't varnish my models, and now a lot of them are starting to get little bits of damage. So I need to just sort of put that matte coat on, just give them that layer of protection. Because I discovered that actually adding varnish is a good way of breaking the gloss effect that badly shaken Agrax can provide. So I will definitely be always keeping that in mind when painting. Just that I can't fix issues like that. Yeah, find the right one. The KKs practically chipping everywhere apart from the fact when you give them to the idiots you play with and then they drop them, which is occasionally the idiot is you and you regret everything. But okay, I think that is me done for night. So basically, I've taken these 4 figures, as you can see, bottom of the case, from sort of this early stage of just pure one camo up to approaching starting the camo stage, which is not a huge amount of time, but I haven't played it a couple of weeks. But yeah, so I think that's me done for tonight. So thank you very much everyone for coming along. It's been really good to sort of hang out and chat, and I will see you all next week when I come back with more paint. Keep your eyes on the Twitch. I may decide to do some more streaming at some point, especially because this Friday I've got the day off. I'm just taking a day to myself, so there might be some stream going up if I feel like it, and can get myself away from Call of Duty for a day. But we'll see. But okay, thanks for everyone hanging out, and I will see you guys around. So yeah, have a good night and have a good week.